Sharmila Kaushik, and if you're watching this, you are the learning kind. This is brought to you by Perpetual Pupil, experts in learning and development, currently focused on bringing new perspectives to education. We have a very exciting guest here with us today, Ms. Indu Sanu, who is an educator and an education leader with a career spanning decades. She started off as a social science teacher, progressively taking leadership roles in the field of teacher training, academic development, and school expansion. Let's hear more about it from her. So, hi ma'am.
Hello.
How was your day? First of all, are you coming from a work day?
Yes, please.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, you had a full office day.
Yes.
You look very fresh.
Thank you.
So, how is everything going on with teaching? Are you already participating in it, or do you have work from home kind of?
No, so we have so what my kind of a role is more of operations, and
Right.
yes, academics is also there. So it is something which it involves a regular understanding how the academics is going, how the operations is going. Is everything fine? Are the children safe? Are the teachers fine? Is the academics going on well? That's about it. Yeah.
That's nice. So, do you interact with teachers on a regular basis, or the administration?
Yes, so we do have principals in the schools, and when I go visiting, the teachers are being interacted. Once when there is an interaction with the teachers, then we interact with the principals and then give the feedback if any feedback is there, appreciation is there. It is very important because appreciation is something especially when I'm going visiting, appreciation and is very important, and
Holds up the morale.
yes. So that is something that I always make sure that the teachers, and for that matter the principals, are also appreciated. And that's what our culture at Samsad is, that we need to appreciate everyone for that
That's
matter.
wonderful.
Yes, please.
So, actually, what I really wanted to know is how did you come to become a leader in the field of education, or in your field of expertise? You came to become a leader. Mostly, I have interacted with teachers and principals at the max. I have very little experience with how somebody takes on a leadership role in the field of academics.
Basically, I'm a teacher at heart. So I have grown up from a teacher and to the various leadership roles, and that's for all the teachers out there, that there is always a role for you if you want to grow in the leadership role. So from a teacher, grew up to be a coordinator, HM, headmistress, then a vice principal, and then a principal. And then I was also dean for one of the group of schools, and then later I was the regional manager for the South Zone for again a major brand in education. And then here it is at Samsad. Yes, please.
You were a social science teacher.
Sure.
Start.
Oh, yes,
So,
yes.
I actually want to know what made you take up humanities as a interest.
Actually, English, so with English, in those days, we had the option of social science. And I remember in our, prior to the undergraduation, 10th, 11th, in those days, it was 10th and 11th. We did not have 12th.
Yeah.
So there were a limited set of options for us to opt for.
Choose
And
from.
yes, please. And that's how, yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I come from a family of educationists. So my father was a lecturer, my mother was a lecturer, and the extended family as well. So that's how it is.
I think we have that in common. I also come from a family of educationists. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. You have looked at education and teaching, and the whole ecosystem of education from all the roles that are available there. You've grown that way. You've been
That's
part
right.
of every role. You've been a teacher. You've been a principal. So many other roles, and what does it look like to be a good teacher from the point of view of a teacher versus the point of view of a leader?
See, a leader can grow only if I talk from my perspective, as in my schooling. So a leader can grow only if the teacher was good, right? And if I look at my teachers, they can, the what we say is the impression of a teacher is everlasting. And we have many, many instances which show that the teacher is the ultimate inspiration for the children. So,
True, yeah, I agree.
if you like a subject, if it is majorly because you like the teacher, and it's vice versa.
True.
You like the teacher because she makes her subject interesting. So
Yeah.
that's how it is. Yeah.
Do you also think sometimes maybe we may like a teacher because we like the subject?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
possible?
It's directly proportional.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's why I've liked all my English teachers so far. Do you see that there is a specific characteristic or a specific trait or certain practice that makes a teacher a good teacher? Like, what is a good teacher?
Good teacher is someone who makes her class interesting, who makes the environment interesting, and who makes the experience of the child, the moment the child enters the school gate, to the child entering the class. So that is where the teacher's influence starts.
True.
And then how is the environment in the classroom, and how is she preparing her classes, how is she preparing her lessons,
Okay.
how is she making her class interesting, how is she interacting with the children. There are many small issues the children they come up with. How is she managing that? And that is possible only when a teacher has a strong emotional quotient. And that is where the Samsid mindful practices come into being, where we practice the loving kindness meditation, which helps. The other day, our chairman was sharing with all of us that Mr. Vasa Srinivasa Rao, that there was a question that was put across by Amitabh Bachchan to one of the sports person in the KBC, and she said,
the archer.
yes,
Or the
and
sharpshooter.
the sharpshooter, and she said that I practice this 2x breathing. So that's how, you have to calm yourself, and that is where, so Samsid is giving as many ways to help the teachers, to help the students overcome their anxiety, there are many issues where the smallest of the child is anxious to go to the school. It might be that the bus the child is traveling in is not comfortable. It might be, so there are various reasons where a child can be uncomfortable. So how to help the child express also is something, because children are sometimes withdrawn, they don't speak.
True, correct, yeah.
So how to make the children also speak is something that these mindful practices, they help.
So mindful practices is one. I think there are many other steps that you would be taking as a leader to ensure that the emotional quotient of a teacher, you said that is integral
That's
to
right.
being a good teacher.
That's right.
So then what are some of the steps that leaders, principals, or people who are CEOs like you or other administrative authorities take to ensure the growth or the maintenance of the emotional quotient of
See, emotional quotient is only possible to be in place when people they are able to manage their emotions. There are times, if I come to the teaching field, for every parent, their child is precious.
Yeah.
And so it is for us at Samsid. Now, when the parent sees that there is a concern with the child, or maybe the parent loses the temper and comes to the school and talks with the teacher,
Yeah.
how not to get hassled about it is something that the teacher has to manage her emotions. The other way that the other practices that we follow are, of course, the mindful practices, which is very important for every individual. There is a 21-day challenge that we follow.
Oh.
And that brings a smile to your face, understanding that you are also aware of what is the 21-day or the 48-day challenge for that matter, where the teachers and the principals, they practice this, and that again, once it becomes as a way of life. That is where at Samsid, we teach the values as regular practices. It is not a once in a week moral science period that
Yeah,
we
you give them
usually
the
have,
lecture
and
about it.
you tell them that this is right and this is not right, and by the next period the children, they forget what was the story told in the previous. So at Samsid, we teach them, we take it as a daily practice, a daily routine, where every subject is aligned with a value. So if a value of compassion, if a value of humility, or a value of happiness, how is it that we are going to teach the children through the subjects?
Okay.
So maybe if I take maths, and there's a certain topic which is there, so maybe fractions. So how are the children taught to be compassionate? So sharing,
Ah.
yeah. So that is something that if you have a whole of something or a bread or something, and if you want to share, you can divide it and make equal
Correct.
or maybe improper fractions. So basically teaching them that sharing is very important, and where there is a will, there is a way. So that is what we teach the children, where the values are taught as a regular practice.
True.
They learn to be compassionate. They learn to be compassionate towards. So there are three ways how the children can be compassionate. And now the best thing is the parents also, they have started practicing it, and compassionate towards themselves, compassionate towards others, and compassionate towards the mother nature.
Mhm.
Now, when I say compassionate towards themselves, how are they being compassionate towards themselves? By eating the right kind of food, by taking care of their health, practicing the mindful practices to calm themselves. So that is something which is eating the right kind of food. So that is being compassionate towards themselves and compassionate towards others, respecting them, understanding their emotions. If somebody is sad, how to help them overcome that and not make fun of them. So that is something which is compassionate towards others, compassionate towards Mother Nature, of course, planting trees, and that is where we bring in the sustainable part of teaching the children about sustainability and sustainable development, which is in partnership with Go Sharpener that we are doing, where the children, they have they practice these practices, like very small practices like switching off the light, saving water. And I would also like to share here that our flagship school, which is at HSR, is a totally sustainable school, where it is on solar powered, and our electricity bill is zero.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the kids are part of this? Like they
Yes,
on the solar
yes, and
Oh,
so the children, they practice these.
very nice. it gives me a whole new perspective on interdisciplinary studies. Like
Yes,
it's not
please.
just about looking at theoretical subjects as though they're connected to each other, but also as your own personal growth. Isn't that what you were saying?
That's what.
Your character and your values must
Correct.
be integrated along with your learning.
Correct. Character development is again a very integral part of teaching at Samsid, which helps us stand apart. And how do we stand apart? Because our children, they practice these,
Correct. Yeah.
and that is how. If you there are two instances where, on one side, the child gives way to the people who are climbing the stairs. On the other side, there is another child who just keeps running and pushing, and so that is where we teach from those small practices. We teach our children.
Very interesting. So, as you were saying, like there are some kids who are sensitive, some kids who are withdrawn when they come,
Yeah.
some kids who are just open.
Yes.
They're running around and they want to push people and do
Yeah.
their things. So I'm sure even in a classroom there is like a variety of students
Yeah.
who are at different levels in their academics, in their value development, overall growth. How can a teacher stand there and make a decision that will reflect the learning needs of the whole class rather than, the few that are noticed or not noticed?
That is where you had asked a previous question, that how do you say that Samsid is what are the different offerings which are there, and how does Samsid stand apart? And that is where teaching differentiated learning and taking up differentiated learning in the classroom. Sadly, there are institutions who do not accept the children who are 40% and below. And that is where our vision and mission of the school is that every child has a right to learn, and every child has the capacity and the capability to learn. That is where the multiple intelligences, I don't want to touch on that. But yes, we at Samsid, we make sure that there is a differentiated learning in the classroom. If a child requires extra support, that is where the extra support comes in the form, so we call it as enrichment. Now, enrichment is also for speaking and improving the linguistic skills of the children. But we also have remedial classes for various subjects, where the children, they are helped by the teachers based on their learning ability. So, if I give you an example, maybe we get a child in grade 5. Now, this child has got the learning ability and the reading ability of a grade 1 child.
Okay, yeah.
So now the teacher has to work where if she brings the child from a grade 1 level to a grade 2 level. So the growth is very steady. We do not expect to to have miracles happening, and we proclaim that the child was in grade 1 level and we have no. It is entirely on the child's learning ability, and we help the child move to the next level and slowly bring the child to the level of the class before the child moves to the next grade.
So that works, it's like a bridge course.
It is, yes. So we also have a diagnostic test, which is at the beginning of the academic year, where we assess the children. So we have an analysis and we assess the children, that on which level the children are on. So based on that, the remedial classes, there's a bridge course that happens. So the bridge course is basically based on the previous knowledge and on the previous grade topics which are there. And after that, once assessing the children, that is where our enrichment and our remediation comes in, and our remedial classes comes in.
Okay. So, That's very interesting.
Here I would like to give you an example here. For our school at HSR, the children who had come to us in grade 5 or grade 6, or maybe prior to that as well, this year when they appeared for the CBSE grade 10 board result, so while they came to us in grade 4 and in grade 5, they were of a level of maybe 40% or maybe below that.
Yeah.
And you would be surprised, we have parent testimonies where the children have scored 70% and between 75 and 80%
Wow. Incredible.
in the CBSE board exam. So that is where, as I said, it is a slow process where the learning pace of the child is kept in mind. We don't hurry up. We don't push the child. As and when the child is learning, we bring the child to the next level.
So, I mean, I can see that Samsid is doing an incredible job, and I wouldn't be surprised looking at leaders like, you, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Vasa sir, and I'm sure a lot of other people.
Yes, please.
What steps would you suggest for other schools or, other educational institutions to ensure there is assistance to help teachers be great just as much as they are assisting students become great? What are some of the steps you would suggest to the general academic institutions?
Okay. So, keeping in mind the teachers, we get teachers who are experienced, we get teachers who are freshers.
Yeah.
And it is very important for us to first train the teachers.
Correct.
Teachers' training is very important. How is it that they need to connect with the children in the class? So that is the first and the foremost thing, understanding whether the teacher, a teacher might be having a highest of the education qualification, but we need to see whether whether the teacher is able to connect with the children in the classroom or not.
Great. Yeah, that's the most important.
Yes,
part.
please. And that can happen only when the teacher is trained, only when the teacher knows how to implement the curriculum in the classroom. There are certain guidelines for the teacher to help her understand that, okay, in EVS, for this particular chapter, I have 7 sessions to take. Now, in these 7 sessions, this is how I'm going to break up my chapter. And there is a prepared lesson plan for them, which we have, thankfully, on our learning management system, which is powered by Azvasa. So, we have the learning management system at our schools, and that is where it helps the teachers. So, I see a lot of times in the family, in everywhere, the teachers, are sitting and writing the lesson plans. And it really gets difficult for them to manage the home and finishing the lesson plan, and because they have to submit it.
Correct.
Now, with the learning management system, the lesson plans are ready-made. And the teacher, so we have a micro-planning session with the principal, with the coordinators and the teachers. And that is where the teachers, they prepare for the next week. And so they don't have to write the lesson plans. The resources are all there on the learning management system at the click of the button. And now we have also come out with an app, a teacher's app, which is there. Which is also, which they can access anytime for their preparation. They need not open the system and open the lesson plan, and it is very easy for the teachers.
That actually brings up a very important point for me. A question which I have been wanting to ask for a while, and now that I have the forum with you and all your experience, I'd love to ask you, what do you think first of all that lesson plans contribute to the feeling of, oh, we need to get through the lesson rather than the teacher's passion to foster learning in the students? Do you think that might be the case at some level?
See, if the lesson is broken up, as I said, for the session, as per the session, then the teacher does not have to worry about that I have to complete the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Then the learning outcomes will happen. The teacher knows that, okay, for this particular session, the chapter is although 15 pages, 20 pages, but for this particular session, I am required to teach only this much. And this should be the learning outcome for this chapter, which the teacher recaps at the end of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows that, okay, I was required to teach about solar system, and my children, they are aware that what exactly is the concept of solar system, and what are the planets, and based on the session which is given to the teacher.
Mm-hmm. So you think that if lesson plans are made properly and per the lessons requirements, that it doesn't kind of hinder the whole teaching experience or the learning experience?
True. That totally depends on how well the teachers prepare for it.
Hmm.
It would be a wonderful lesson plan.
Okay.
But if the teacher does not go through it and see that what are the resources available for me, there would be a wonderful presentation which is available on solar system.
Mm-hmm.
But if as a teacher I have not gone through it, there's a prior preparation from my end, I would not be able to present it as the
well.
curriculum developer would have done it from with a perspective that this is how. So I would not be able doing justice as a teacher if I'm not preparing well for the my lessons.
So whether the lesson plan is good or not, it's the preparation of the teacher.
Yes, that is
So
very
in this role, in this situation, what would you say the teacher should be focusing on specifically in their role as a teacher?
See, they should not focus on as in the term focus.
Okay.
They should know that whether the children are, first of all, what is their prior knowledge. They first have to understand that,
Mm-hmm.
right? They also have to understand that how are they making the session interesting for them, and how are they making the classroom interesting.
Okay.
Once all these parameters are taken care of, automatically learning will happen in the classroom.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And until next time, don't stop learning.
That is all.